rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. Boy, Coco over on Rumble, she's having a identity crisis. She's blaming it on Rumble, but I'm telling you, it's her. It's her. Anyway. Hello, everybody. All right, let's go ahead and get things kicked off. I think tonight we have Definitely Not Karen up on tap for tonight's Pledge of Allegiance. So, if you are of mine, please stand, remove your hat, if you're wearing one, like me, and place your hand over your heart, or your hat over your heart, either way, and follow along with Definitely Not Karen in tonight's Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And of course, we thank you, Definitely Not Karen, for that wonderful rendition of the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would like to hear your pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself reciting or performing the pledge in your style, and then take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file, and send it off to me, attach it to an email, send it to fans, F-A-N-S, at americanperspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at americanperspective.online. And Coco apparently even switched to another name, so I'm sorry, I'm just going to call her Coco, insert name here. Because that's just the way she seems to roll. And I've been told by Bonnie, who, Bonnie is the type of woman who basically, when her feet hit the floor in the morning, Satan yells, "Oh shit, she's awake." So I'm not going to be messing with Coco anymore. Much. All right, tonight, of course, is
down to business.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
That's right, it's Whiskey Wednesday. And, it's like Taco Tuesday, but for badasses. My mother loves Taco Tuesday. But anyway, for tonight, I am drinking the Bullet Bourbon. Bullet. Oh, Bullite? B-U-L-L-E-I-T. Everybody calls it Bullet. But there it is. And it, of course, is in the True Grit Roots Network glass. That's right, tonight's True Grit Roots Network night. And there are the stones. That is the requisite. It takes stones to drink with whiskey. Oh, hell. Not only did I mess with Coco, one of Bonnie's favorites, but I also am not drinking what Bonnie would consider good bourbon. I wish I could pronounce it in French. Bulita. No, that's more Spanish, I guess. I don't know. Anyway. All right. Let's go ahead and get started with our headline sponsor. Headline sponsor, of course, is True Grit Roots Network. That's TGRN. And if you go to tgrn.net, number 3, tgrn.net, you will find us on the web. That's our home. Okay. That's our home, is tgrn.net. When you go there, you have the choice. You can either listen to Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio, or you can listen to Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio. And yeah, they're both great stations, running 24/7, 365. You can listen straight through the web page. There's a couple, you can see them right there at the bottom. There's 2 widgets. You can pick which one you want. Or if you scroll down further, just below the widgets, you can download the apps for each station right there on the App Store and Google Play. You can just click those links and that'll take you right to where you need to go to pick up whatever version you need and whatever station or channel you want, I should say, because the station is TGRN. It's the channel we're dealing with. Come on over and give us a try. TGRN.net. Download the app for Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio or Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio. You can grab either one of them and try us out. Give us a shot. Doing some great things over there. We've got some great DJs on both stations that put out some really great music. Dallas Moore actually does his own show on Tuesdays. Dallas Moore's Honky Tonk Happy Hour. And, yeah, so there you go. You can try both of them. But head on over to tgrn.net and you'll find all of the information that you want, not only on the stations themselves, but also on the artists, or, sorry, the people who do the shows, as well as the men themselves, whether it's Walter Trout or Dallas Moore. You can find out all about them at tgrn.net. That stands for True Grit Roots Network. And we are based out of Austin, Texas. And I covered myself up on that. On that anyway. All right. Well, we've had some apologies. We've had a couple apologies this week. So the first one that I'm going to talk about tonight, of course, comes from Elon Musk. So Elon Musk, he and Trump kind of went at each other publicly, which, I mean, I kind of think that kind of crap is really pretty stupid, but they went ahead and did it anyway. Anyway, so all of that set aside, though, Elon posted a few things, a couple untrue things like the whole, Trump being in the Epstein files. That has since been deleted. And Elon Musk sends out a late night apology, basically saying that he pretty much said that he had gone too far in his personal attacks on Trump. And here's the thing. I mean, I just got to point this out to you, okay? And this goes for me as well as anybody else. Once you air something like that, you can never really take it back. And especially if you're doing it on the internet, you really can't take it back. Because even though Elon has deleted the tweet, there are enough people who have screenshotted it, and basically it's going to live forever. It really is. And so this is part of the reason why if you're going to get into an argument or a battle like this with someone, what you need to do is you essentially need to make sure that you either do it in private, or make sure that you never, ever, really get into it like that with somebody. You really shouldn't. Because, I mean, let's face it, all this is going to do is no matter what happens moving forward, everybody is going to remember this, especially the political left, because they're just going to hang on to that for as long as they possibly can. And they're going to keep it, and they're going to keep coming and bringing it back up and everything else. Well, the president, of course, told the Post in a brief phone conversation, he says, I thought it was very nice that he did that. That was it. He didn't go any further as to whether or not he was willing to let bygones be bygones or anything along those lines. Yeah. So, yeah, Musk wrote late last night. I regret some of my posts about President Donald Trump last week. They went too far. Well, that's what happens. You need to stop that. So, anyway, well, we'll just have to see what's going on with these two. And in the future. But anyway, Trump also told Post columnist Miranda Devine, which, by the way, she's got a new podcast called, what is it called? Pod Force One. And the first of the series has dropped. Apparently it's on Spotify. But anyway, Trump told her that he doesn't blame Musk for the blow up that started with the whole criticism of the big, beautiful bill, but maintained that he's still a little disappointed. Trump said, quote, "Look, I have no hard feelings. I was really surprised when that happened. He went after a bill that's phenomenal. I think he feels very badly that he said that, actually." And that's it. Now, he was asked by Devine on the Pod Force One podcast if he would ever go back to a regular relationship with Musk. And he said, "I guess I could, but we have to straighten out the country. And my sole function now is getting this country back to a level higher than it's ever been. And I think we can do that." So, yeah, we'll just have to see what happens move forward. And again, there's still some questions. I still think that maybe this was like a coordinated sort of thing that maybe backfired a little bit. I don't know. But, you know, if it is a real fight, at least or a real disagreement, I should say, a real argument, then at least the two of them seem to be amicable moving forward. Neither one seems to necessarily be holding a grudge, although I don't know. We'll just kind of have to see. I mean, again, you know, keep in mind, like I've told you before, I mentioned it on this program when it first broke, Trump and Musk both love trolling the left. They both love, you know, they love the attention. Honestly, it really doesn't matter. I don't think to either of them what kind of attention they get. And so, you know, this might have been spurred. And, you know, Mrs. Whiskey came up with a really good point the other day when we were discussing it. She said that she doesn't really believe that Trump and Musk are actually the ones in charge of their accounts. That, I mean, let me rephrase that. They're in charge, but they're not the ones that are actually always tweeting or posting things. Because let's face it, both these men have much more important things to do than to sit on Twitter all day. So, yeah. Anyway. Don't know how true it is, but I can tell you one thing. If Elon was right about Trump being in the Epstein files, the Democrats would have already aired it like a long damn time ago, before Trump 1 even came about. And so, yeah, I am unconvinced completely that Donald Trump has anything in terms of what the left would love to see him end up in. So anyway, all right, our second apology, and this is another, basically, if you do this, if you're going to type something, type it all out, read it a couple of times, leave it on draft, and then, you know, delete it later, because otherwise you're going to end up eating your words. And you'll end up having to issue a chat GPT or freaking PR firm, conglomerated statement. So here in Breitbart, which actually I've seen the Simone Biles tweet. I saw it when she put it out. And of course I just responded to her and told her there's really no other way to do this. But anyway, Simone Biles apologizes to Riley Gaines and attempts to clarify her stance on trans athletes. Now, there's only one problem with her clarifying her stance, but I'll get to that in just a minute. So she is backtracking after she attacked Riley Gaines. And it became kind of a personal attack, that she did. And so yesterday, she apologized for getting personal with Gaines, letting her emotions get in the way of discussing what is a sensitive and complicated issue. No, it's not really all that complicated. And this is why. Simone, if you're listening, if you are listening, or if you ever listen to this, or even read my tweet because, or my post on X, because this honestly is the answer. Women in women's sports, men in men's sports. If you want to have an other category, go for it. Period. End of story. That's how you do this. There's none of this crossing over or anything else. There's none of this other crap. Because 2017, Simone Biles posted on X how she basically said that if men were allowed in the gymnastics arena that she is in, that she would never win another medal. I'm paraphrasing slightly, but that is basically the wording that she used. And then in 2025, she goes after Riley Gaines. My guess is she was thinking she was going to win some brownie points, and she ended up freaking getting just hammered by people. Rightly so. I mean, if she were going to do that, she should have done it about 4 years ago, not now. But she probably feels, like a lot of superstars do when their careers are at the end. They get really pissy and they're like, I need to be in the spotlight again. And so they do something stupid, and this is what you end up with. So anyway, she says, I want to follow up on my last tweets. I've always believed in competitive equity and inclusivity are both essential in sport. The current system doesn't adequately balance these important principles. Yes, it does. It balances it easily. Very easily. Men in men's sports, women in women's sports, and other, if you want to clarify yourself as something other than those two categories. Simple. No different than men's bathrooms, women's bathrooms, and then the family/gender neutral bathroom. Pretty damn freaking simple, if you ask me. You're trying, one thing that I had a high school chemistry teacher that used to tell me that one thing that he has learned at the time, he had been teaching for like 25 years, that if there's one thing that he's learned is that human beings tend to make the simplistic complicated. And that is their desire to do that. So anyway, I'm paraphrasing that as well. So there you go. She apologized. Riley Gaines, of course, being a little bigger of a person, she essentially tweeted out, I accept Simone's apology for the personal attacks, including the ones where she body shamed me. I know she knows what this feels like. She is still the greatest female gymnast of all time. A couple of things. Sports are inclusive by nature. Anyone can and everyone should play. And there's some more there, but I'm not going to. So anyway. So there you go. Couple of apologies. They're apologizing. They are apologizing. Well, I think there are some people in the economics world that need to apologize to Donald Trump. Because regardless of what you're seeing with the tariff on, tariff off, kind of wax on, wax off type deal with everything that's going on here, back and forth. Well, consumer prices barely rose for the fourth straight month. In other words, we're holding pretty damn steady in terms of inflation. It's not going up, it's not going down, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that the interest rates are not going up, they're not going down. The Fed Reserve is holding them where they're at. So, yeah, and it's mild inflation, by the way. So compared with a year ago, consumer prices are only up 2.4%. Core prices have only risen 2.8%. Economists had forecasted that prices were going to rise 0.2%, matching what they called tame inflation figure reported for April. Core prices were expected to rise 0.3% at a slightly faster pace seen in the prior month. Energy prices fell 2.4% in May, led by a 2.6% decline in gasoline. Compared with a year ago, gasoline prices are down 12%. All you freaking moronic Democrat leftist lunatic idiots on there saying, I thought gas prices were supposed to fall on day one. They were supposed to fall on day one. Grocery prices were supposed to come down on day one. Yeah, egg prices have dropped 60%. Gasoline is down 12% compared to a year ago. Yeah. You guys are really freaking idiots. Really full of freaking idiots. Anyway. So yeah, now grocery prices did rise a little bit. They only rose by 0.3%, which partially reverses the prior month's 0.4% decline. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, did that just say yes? 0.4% decline. Anyway. So, yeah. Now, granted, over the past year, grocery prices have increased 2.2%. Well, that's the largest part of where inflation actually is resting right now. So, yeah. Eggs continue to drop. They dropped 2.7% over the month. Yeah. So, anyway. Yeah. Used car prices fell. And more and more and more. Apparel prices also fell. So, and this is the second straight month of falling clothing prices, by the way. So, men's and women's shoes also fell. Yeah. So, things are starting to come in and look a little bit better. They're not happening like, they're not happening fast. They're not happening quickly, but you need to understand there was 4 years of increasing and overspending and everything else. And we're just now seeing some of the benefit of the change in leadership. And we're even in this is the month of June. So that's 5 months, not even a full 5 months in to the new presidency, and things are already dropping. So yeah, whatever. We'll have to see what happens over the course of the next 6 to 8 months, which, by the way, in my opinion, would actually set up things for 2026. Okay. But anyway. All right. Well, the other night I went on a rant, and one of the ranting items that I pointed out was how the Congress is in charge of the D.C. area, meaning that Congress is fully in charge and authoritarian over the 10 square mile area that is constitutionally set out for the District of Columbia. Okay. And, well, somebody, and I won't name names, but somebody seems to think that no, the Congress is not in charge. Really? So if Congress is not in charge, yeah, some bullet bourbon. Anyway, if Congress is not in charge, then how the hell does this happen? This in Just the News. The House makes changes to 2 D.C. laws, including one that was allowing non-citizens to vote in local elections. Yeah, read that again. The House makes changes to 2 D.C. laws regarding and one of them happens to be regarding local elections. Now, wait a minute. A person with a little bit of common sense and a hell of a lot of knowledge would look at that and say, well, wait a minute. How can the House, which is a part of Congress, do that to the D.C. area? Well, it's pretty simple. Very simple. Congress has the authority to oversee Washington, D.C. laws because of the city's, quote, home rule. Yeah, the rule gives Congress the authority to review the federal city's laws, but the laws are still passed by the city mayor and the city council, according to NBC News. But there's this thing, I don't know, this thing right here called the Constitution of the United States that shows, or that says within it, that Congress has the authority to make all laws within the D.C. 10 square mile area known as the district. Now, ABC or NBC News, of course, is a left-leaning organization. They're not going to tell you that. They're not going to tell you that, because if they do, that means that they are wrong. Anyway, so the House went ahead and repealed the D.C. law that allows non-citizens to vote in local elections in a bipartisan 266 by 148 vote that saw 56 Democrats join all Republicans. So even the Democrat Party is starting to realize that, hey, maybe this, non-citizen illegal alien thing, maybe that's not quite the winning package that we need. Now, they did also pass some other legislation. One restores collective bargaining rights, imposes a statute of limitations for city police officers involved in disciplinary cases. That one was passed 235 to 178. 4 Republicans opposed that legislation and 30 Democrats voted for that legislation. The House is also expected to vote on a third D.C. law tomorrow that would force the city to comply with ICE and Homeland Security requests regarding illegal aliens. So wait a minute. Again, I'm going to go back. Hold on. Not that I'm really like patting myself on the back. I'm just saying, hey, I am right with this. But the House is passing laws that affect what is essentially a local area. How can they do that? Pretty simply, the Congress is the authority. And the reference, of course, has to be for January 6th. Because Pelosi and Bowser did not approve the request for 10,000 D.C. National Guard or any National Guard troops to be there on January 6th. Well, there you go. I'm not just standing up here being a pretty face, because believe me, if you're looking at me and thinking I'm a pretty face, we got a conversation that we need to have. Faux show. Well, this one comes from the F Around and Find Out file. Well, there was a Democrat. There once was a Democrat who went to a detention center. Oh, it was an ICE detention center. And she stormed this detention center. In fact, she physically assaulted a police officer at that detention center, and then claimed that she was just doing congressional jobs. Yeah. Well, again, this is part of the FAFO file. She FA'd. She FA'd. And now she is effing O. Here it is, right here. Democrat LaMonica McIver is indicted over storming the ICE detention center. And she now is facing up to 17 years in federal prison. A federal grand jury issued a 3-count federal indictment against Representative LaMonica McIver. She's a Democrat from New Jersey after she was reportedly caught on camera storming an ICE detention center in Newark, New Jersey last month. Yep. And on Tuesday, this was yesterday, a federal grand jury in Newark returned an indictment against her, charging her with forcibly impeding and interfering with ICE agents while they were trying to arrest an illegal alien outside of the detention hall, Delaney Hall Detention Center on May 9th. Yeah, you remember that that thing, the U.S. Code, Title 8, Section 111, that I pointed out to you here not too long ago? We had a good discussion. This was a couple nights ago. We had a good discussion on all of these laws that are being broken. Yeah. 3 counts. Yep, 3 counts. So according to the indictment, MacIver, as well as other representatives, Bonnie Watson-Coleman and Robert Menendez, were outside Delaney Hall to conduct congressional oversight when their oversight coincided with a protest by Open Borders activists. The charges against MacIver stem from her attempts to prevent Newark Mayor Raz Baraka from being arrested after he refused to leave the secured area of the detention center that he was not authorized to be in. So, yeah. Yep. So she did the FA, and she's gonna FO. Yeah, just come on, people. You got to understand. We're now in the presence of an actual law and order president. So, yeah. There we go. All right, before I get going on the next one, let's go ahead and talk about Truth Social. You look right here, down in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. Yep, there it goes. It just went away. You'll see my social media handles. They'll come in and they'll come in and then they'll disappear and then they'll come in and disappear. They go back and forth. One of them is, of course, my Truth Social handle. Are you on Truth Social? I'm on Truth Social. You need to get on Truth Social. Truth Social is a great place to go. If you're looking for a great place online for news, discussion, and entertainment, then check out Truth Social, Donald Trump's social media website. You'll get breaking news stories and commentary from top media figures. If you want to see Trump's legendary Truth Social posts, then get on Truth Social. There it went. It just went away. Then get on Truth Social today. Join a growing community of patriots on a free speech platform specifically designed to avoid censorship and cancellation by big tech. Make your voice heard. Join the movement. Join Truth Social. I post on Truth Social. Not often, but I do. I post there. But that is definitely where you need to go to get your Truth Social, or to get your fill of Truth Social and Donald Trump, because that's where he posts. That's right. All right. Some of these are... We'll have to see what pops up here in another half hour. Anyway, so Donald Trump actually won a little bit of another court case. So the Federal Circuit Court, so let's bring this out. Just a couple of weeks ago, there were multiple court rulings regarding the tariffs, okay, being implemented by the Trump administration. And the Court of International Trade, known as the CIT, held that Trump's administration's actions on tariffs invoking the International Emergency Economic Powers Act exceeded the president's authority under the statute and thus violated the separation of powers set forth by the Constitution. Well, then Judge Rudolph Contreras of the D.C. District Court ruled against the tariffs the following morning. Now, by the next evening, though, the Federal Circuit Court of Appeals had issued a administrative, which is a temporary, stay on the ruling, the CIT's ruling. And Contreras went ahead and stayed his rulings, also pending the appeal. Now, the Federal Circuit Court has now taken an additional step and has formally issued a stay of the CIT rulings pending appeal. Additionally, they've ordered that the cases, there's 2 different ones that have been now consolidated, to be heard by the entire full court in an expedited fashion. And this is something that it's not unusual, but it's definitely something that is for sure, interesting here. So the United States, here's what the pertinent portion of the court order reveals. The United States motions for a stay of the United States Court of International Trade rulings enjoining certain executive orders imposing tariffs. The plaintiffs' appellees' oppositions in the United States reply were presented to all circuit judges on this court in regular active service who were not recused or disqualified. Both sides have made substantial arguments on the merits. Having considered the traditional stay factors, and it lists a court case, the court concludes that a stay is warranted under the circumstances. The purpose of interim equitable relief is not to conclusively determine the rights of the parties, but to balance the equities as the litigation moves forward. The court also concludes that these cases present issues of exceptional importance warranting a expedited en banc consideration of the merits in the first instance. So, the parties are to come up with basically an expedited briefing schedule that will allow for oral arguments before the court on July 31st of 2025. So again, keep in mind, this isn't a ruling on it at all. It's just a procedural pause to allow the appeal to be resolved on the merits while keeping the status quo, which is essentially that the tariffs may remain in effect. So there you go. And the oral arguments are going to happen at the end of July. So with the merits or the ruling coming in either August or September. So there you go. All right. Well, folks, the whole he said of the Trump call, whether Newsom said he denies the call from the president and the Trump team says, yeah, I did call him. The problem is that it has to deal. I mean, let's be honest here. It's really just a question as to whether or not, because the question to Donald Trump was, have you talked to him in the last, have you talked to him at all? And Trump himself said just the other day, meaning one day ago. Okay. So, the question came from a reporter where it said, when is the last time you spoke with Governor Newsom? And Trump thought about it for a second, responded, a day ago. I called him up to tell him got to do a better job. He's doing a bad job, causing a lot of death, a lot of potential death. We didn't send out the National Guard. And last time we gave him a little additional help. You would have Los Angeles would be burning right now, so on and so forth. The hang up here, honestly, the hang up here is the interpretation of the a day ago. See, Newsom jumped on it and said, no, there wasn't a call. There's not even a voicemail. Well, yeah, in the last 24 hours, there wasn't. But over the weekend prior to this, there was. And that's what Trump showed. And so this is kind of again, it's one of those things where it depends. It depends a lot on how you are interpreting what you mean or what Trump meant by a day ago. Now that man, I'm just saying, is so busy and everything that days, I can tell you, some of my days even run together. So I would guess that there is a possibility that Trump was thinking of the phone calls that were like 2 days ago. So to get all wrapped up around the axle about this whole thing is just freaking ridiculous. But of course, the left is going to grab onto this because they grab onto everything that Trump says and take it as though it's gospel, even when we all know that Trump has a very dry sense of humor, has a basically has the ability and desire to troll the left. So there are times where he'll just say something just to see what kind of a reaction he'll get, which kind of leads toward the whole Elon Musk Trump blow up thing. But I digress. Anyway, so Trump set the record straight while he was at Fort Bragg, or sorry, on his way to Fort Bragg. By the way, I love the fact that he's saying Fort Bragg now. To deliver remarks there. He called on Fox News' John Roberts and shared with him the call logs indicating a call to Newsom. One missed call followed almost immediately by a 16-minute call. So my guess is that Gavin Newsom is sort of playing the odds on the language nuance with the whole thing about, well, Trump said he called me, a day ago within the last 24 hours, and he hasn't. Again, it's kind of semantics. The question had to deal with when was the last time that you talked to Gavin Newsom. And he did talk to Gavin Newsom on the 7th. So, anyway. Yeah. So yeah, it's just, the calls occurred on Saturday, not Monday. Technically, Trump saying that it was a day ago. It wasn't actually a day ago. It's like, come on. This is just nitpicking for nitpicking, realistically. I mean, that's all it is, as far as the phone call stuff is concerned. However, I will tell you this much. If you believe that Gavin Newsom is not running for president, yeah, I got another thing coming. He's been making all kinds. He has vaunted himself into what is being monikered as the leader of the opposition. He is the leader of the opposition. That's what he is trying to be. Now, if you don't think that he's trying to make a run for the presidency in 2028, yeah. Now, you tie his actions and how he is acting today with the fact that Jasmine Crockett made hints that she is under the understanding and belief that, she is under the understanding and belief that the DNC has chosen a white man for the presidency slot. And I can totally see them picking slick, greased back Gavin Newsom for their chosen one in 2028. Now, here's the thing, though. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't think that Gavin Newsom is going to have the chops on the debate stage against somebody like, a J.D. Vance. He could barely hold his own against Ron DeSantis. And that was one-on-one. And Ron DeSantis, realistically, other than that one-on-one performance, didn't really perform well in the presidential candidacy debates, in the primary debates. A buddy of mine, Stephen Stiles, and I were talking about it today. And Ron DeSantis is a great guy when you get him on one-on-one, and he is very eloquent. He's intelligent. He's able to articulate well. He can, swing the bat with the best of them when it comes to knocking things out back and forth. But the reality of it is DeSantis doesn't necessarily stand out in a group. I mean, they had two primary debates, and Ron DeSantis, while he didn't do badly, he didn't do extremely well either. He sort of just, I mean, I hate to say this, but he sort of just faded into the background. And unfortunately, my expectations were when he went and accepted the governor-to-governor debate that Gavin Newsom set up, I kind of wasn't really expecting a stellar performance. But instead, that's what he ended up giving. And Ron DeSantis basically wiped the floor with Gavin Newsom. And Gavin Newsom got so destroyed that his wife had to step in for him and say, no, we're not. Because Gavin was already, he was like, oh, yeah, let's go for another 30 minutes. And, his wife said, nope, we can't do that. So, yeah, he got his ass kicked by Ron DeSantis. So it would be really nice to see him on the debate stage with somebody like a J.D. Vance, who wiped the floor with the other possible presidential candidate, by the way, was who was making it very well known that he wants to run in the form of Tim Walz, Tampon Tim. But anyway, this is about Gavin Newsom. So Gavin Newsom comes up and does this big speech, or tries to do the big speech. So here is a clip on Sean Hannity's show, because Hannity was trying to bring Newsom in, and, well, let's just say it didn't go very well. So let's take a look.
All right, I'm talking to my control room, and they're telling me that there's no audio available. I'm trying to put Gavin Newsom up. We can show a shot of it again. I'd like to carry it for people. I'd like to hear him again excoriate Donald Trump and blame Donald Trump. Oh, it just went down completely. I mean, you can't make this up.
You can't make this up.
Now, what's sad about this is not that Gavin Newsom had the problem, okay? Is not that Gavin Newsom had the problem. I just was reminded by this technical difficulty area or arena where Ron DeSantis tried to launch his presidential bid on X. And it was going to be this grandiose thing. And it was going to be fantastic. And yeah. It ended up crashing and burning too, which was an indication in terms of Ron DeSantis's actual presidential campaign, which again didn't really get started right out of the gate. So anyway, here's what he said, a sample of what he said during a part of the audio, during the audio failure portion. So here's basically Gavin Newsom lying through his teeth.
What's happening right now is very different than anything we've seen before. On Saturday morning, when federal agents jumped out of an unmarked van near a Home Depot parking lot, they began grabbing people, a deliberate targeting of a heavily Latino suburb. A similar scene played out when a clothing company was raided downtown. In other actions, a U.S. citizen, 9 months pregnant, was arrested. A 4-year-old girl taken. Families separated. Friends, quite literally, disappearing.
Yeah. No, they didn't disappear. In fact, once they had their identities, their identities confirmed, they actually were released. Didn't go anywhere. So yeah, it sounds upsetting. I know. I don't know. I mean, it sounds upsetting. They showed up at a Home Depot. How many people have driven by a Home Depot? And I can tell you, I have. There are certain Home Depots here in the state of Washington that you drive up, you can pick up any number of illegal immigrants looking for cash and a day's work. Guaranteed. And, it's like, okay, well, I mean, I'm sorry, but look, you're already here illegally. You're a criminal. I don't care whether you say you're not a criminal or not. You're here illegally. You're a criminal. You've broken our laws. That's the definition of being a criminal, is breaking a law. You've broken a law. You're a criminal. That's it. There's no other question. You look at the Immigration and Naturalization Act, and you should be deported immediately. That's just basically how it is. But anyway, yeah. So here is let's see, Natalie Jean Beisner. Okay. She basically was saying he just gave a partisan incendiary speech rivaled only by Biden's ultra MAGA address. Yeah. She said the entire address, which was supposed to be to Californians, was really just an indirect address to Trump. Yeah. So, here, he said this. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine this. Like many states, California is no stranger to this sort of unrest. We manage it regularly. No, you don't. Your form of management is to let them go and hope they go away when they get tired. Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, he goes, Donald Trump, without consulting California law enforcement leaders, commandeered 2,000 of our state's National Guard members to deploy in our streets, illegally and for no reason. Nope. He did it legally. Again, Title 10, United States Code, Section 12406 is where he does that. Then, and he did it for a reason, because you weren't enforcing immigration law as you, as the governor, are supposed to. So, yeah. So there you go. Really quick, got a new person over on YouTube. Give a welcome to Dane. Dane Andrews says, I'm new to your channel. And Dane says, I'm a little left of center. And he hopes that Gavin doesn't run for president. Well, believe me, you're in good company there, Dane. Just saying. And C205 over on YouTube also says Newsom is part of the problem. No, actually, I disagree. He's not part of the problem. He is the problem at the state level. The cities have their own problems in the mayors, and Karen Bass has done absolutely nothing to set this up. But anyway, so yeah, there you go. Now, so here is another short clip of this, where he is also talking about something that, yeah, probably
California will keep fighting. We'll keep fighting on behalf of our people, all of our people, including in the courts.
Okay. I got a question about that. You're going to keep fighting. Fighting what? Fighting against immigration law, established immigration law? You're going to fight against law enforcement. Yeah. No, Gavin, you're on the losing end of this. I guarantee you're on the losing end of this. And I don't even understand why he even thinks this is a winning issue. I've already showed you, and I've talked about it a couple different times, that I've already showed you the laws that are being broken here. They are harboring illegals. That's Title 8, United States Code 1324, Section 1324. And they're harboring those illegals by trying to stop ICE. Every time that they try to stop ICE and break in, they are breaking Title 8, USC, Section 111. I mean, I don't know. I don't understand where Gavin Newsom thinks that he's on the correct side of this entire situation. By the way, Vivek Ramaswamy, whom if you're outside of Ohio, you haven't really heard from him at all, because he's been running for the governor of Ohio. Well, he raised his head on this issue, and we'll get to that in just a second. But first, let's talk about 1775 coffee. You still haven't tried it yet? Now is your shot. The 1775 starter kit just dropped. And they only have a small number available. In this kit, you'll be getting the bold dark roast that hits harder than a CNN fact check, a smooth medium roast, and a vitality mushroom coffee, which gives you clean energy and laser focus with no crash. All of them are single origin, small batch, toxin free, and mold free. Additionally, as a part of the kit, you'll also be getting, and this one is my favorite, a gold spoon clip, because freedom is not scooped with plastic. Also, you'll get a frother that is strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's political opinions. You'll also receive a black 1775 tumbler that says, "I don't take life advice or caffeine from a woke sea witch." It's $170 worth of coffee and gear, yours for just $99. This is for the ones who have been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble and wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler alert, it is. Go to 1775coffee.com. That's 1775coffee, all put together, .com / which is the question mark key, / studio, STUDIO, and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Once again, go to 1775coffee.com / studio and grab your starter kit today. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something, just like Rumble does. Start your day with coffee that actually backs what you believe. Go to 1775coffee.com / studio and grab your starter kit before they are gone. All right. So Vivek Ramaswamy, he poked his head up, and I'll be honest with you, this guy, he's got some serious cojones. But he had something to say to Gavin Newsom about this whole thing. And let's go ahead and just listen to what he has to say.
I know Gavin Newsom. I actually happen to like him as a person. The reality is he's not going to like what I have to say on this, which is that his behavior is starting to resemble that of another Democratic governor from U.S. history by the name of George Wallace, who was the governor of Alabama, who famously stood in the way of federal desegregation. And in 1963, President John F. Kennedy had to deploy the National Guard of Alabama, just like President Trump is doing today. And I know that's counterintuitive to some people, but the parallels are actually pretty striking if you think about it. Democrat governors, when you look at George Wallace, he resisted desegregation. Gavin Newsom is resisting deportations. George Wallace wanted segregated cities. Gavin Newsom wants sanctuary cities. George Wallace stood in the school door blocking the way. Gavin Newsom is blocking the ICE vans. It's the same Democrat governor playbook. You dodge the feds, you rally the radicals, and most importantly of all, you do it in front of the cameras, because what they were both doing is really carving their Democratic primary path for their presidential ambitions. And Jesse, you can mark my words on this one. Gavin Newsom's presidential ambitions are going to end in the same place that George Wallace's did, in the dustbins of history where it belongs. That's just the truth.
Wow. Strong words. Strong words from Vivek Ramaswamy. But he's not wrong. I mean, he really isn't. And this is what I've been trying to tell people on the social medias, especially the sycophantic leftist morons. Okay? They pretty much all believe that Gavin Newsom has got some fantastic power that he can stop Trump from deploying what realistically is Trump's, as the commander-in-chief, his troops. And here's the thing, folks. Donald Trump's got history on his side. Eisenhower, Kennedy, George Bush Sr., I think. They all nationalized federalized, I should say, the National Guard troops. See, you've got to understand, the National Guard troops, they have essentially two functions in life. Their normal default function is what's known as Title 32. Title 32 basically means that they are in the service of the governor. Okay? And so sitting here and trying to basically say that that the federal government, oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry, I got sidetracked, sorry. So Title 32, under normal circumstances, they are responsible to the governor. However, the president and the federal government is in charge and is responsible for training those National Guard soldiers and airmen and all this other stuff in order to make sure that they are reserves and backups for the regular forces that would, be able to mobilize a lot quicker than the regular army does, because the regular army is sitting on, and I'm only using the army as an example, the regular army is generally in only certain locations. So logistically, it's a lot easier to get the National Guard troops to deploy because they're already there. But they are working under Title 32 normally. When they get federalized, like what Donald Trump has done, they change from a Title 32 over to a Title 10. And when that happens, they become basically the relevant equivalent of the regular Army or regular Air Force, regular Marines, whatever, troops. And so this is where Gavin Newsom got thrown off, because Gavin Newsom believed falsely that request had to come through the governor. It doesn't. The president can call them up at any time, anywhere, for any reason. Just about. And that's what ended up happening here. Vivek Ramaswamy called them out on it and is basically saying Gavin Newsom is just lost. So, yeah. Anyway. Oh, Edward. No, you're lost. You're lost. Edward over on YouTube says Trump and all of his supporters are traitors to America. No, you're not. You're lost. You're totally lost. Anyway. All right. So Newsom, of course, has been, where is it? Yes. Let's see. I just want to see if there's anything else that I want to say on this. But anyway, there we go. Yep. All right. So that's it. It looks like Rumble made me vanish for a second. My apologies on that, but whatever. All right, so last night I revealed to you that there was a Minnesota legislator. She's part of the state legislation, okay? And she said in a legislative meeting, all right, with regards to what's going on over there, she alluded to the fact that she may very well be illegal. Well, guess what? I think she realized, she thought about it, and she says, well, wait a minute. Maybe that was wrong. Yep. Minnesota rep who claimed to be an illegal alien is backtracking her comments. Yeah, sometimes these people, again, I mean, just to kind of bring this back to the beginning, sometimes you got to make sure you don't say things that you don't actually mean or you don't actually want people to find out about. So anyway, this state representative in Minnesota, just to catch you guys all up again, announced on the House floor that she is living in the United States illegally. She made a comment that basically said, I am illegal in this country. My parents are illegal here in this country. And I played this for you in the past. So she previously shared that she was born in Laos and came to the United States as a refugee when she was a child. Now, predictively, her remarks sent shockwaves out, with many people calling on ICE to go and investigate her. Now, shortly after the remarks that she made, she gave an interview to the Minnesota Reformer where she clarified her immigration status. She said that she and her parents are U.S. citizens. She is a refugee from Laos, moved to the U.S. when she was 3. Her parents took their citizenship test, and the lady herself, she's called Her, Her became a citizen as a minor when she was in middle school, she said. She said her father technically broke the law when he filled out the paperwork for the family to come to the U.S. as refugees. He did so to expedite the process to come to the U.S., though they would have come to America anyway, she said. Now, she came to America along with a wave of other Hmong, H-M-O-N-G, refugees who were critical allies to the United States during the Vietnam War and the secret war in Laos, assisting in intelligence operations, disrupting North Vietnamese supply routes, combating communism's spread throughout Southeast Asia. Her grandfather was a colonel in that war, she said. As American allies, they faced violent recriminations from the communists after the war, which is why the U.S. welcomed them here, especially through laws like the Refugee Act of 1980. Okay? So there you go. And on Monday, her remarks was made during a special session surrounding the idea of allowing illegal alien adults to qualify for government health care. So, yeah. So she is a U.S. citizen. Yes, she kind of gave me, I mean, I'll be honest with you, it probably is just going to, I mean, they're going to sweep it under the rug. It's not that big of a deal, apparently. And the problem was that when she made these statements, she was a member of the Minnesota state legislature, and that by law requires that she has to be a U.S. citizen in order to be eligible to be part of that representational group. And yeah, so when she said that she was there illegally, that was like, anyway, so we'll just have to see what happens with her. But yeah, she kind of opened up her mouth a little bit and realized that, you know what, maybe that wasn't exactly the smartest thing in the world for me to say. Yeah. So, sure. Anyway. All right, let's go back. Okay. So, as anyone who has watched this program knows, they know for a fact that I am a United States Army veteran. I served one tour. It happened to be during Desert Storm, but it was not. It was during Desert Storm, but I did not serve actually in combat. However, all of that being said, when Biden decided to change the names of a bunch of Army forts, including the one that I spent the most time at, which is Fort Hood, well, let's just say it was a little disconcerting because of the fact that, yeah, there's a lot of history there, and changing it to the name Fort Cavazos was not exactly, to me, a very, well, I mean, again, you kind of get used to things. So it will always be known as Fort Hood in my mind. Well, the good news is that Donald Trump is actually turning it back, along with a bunch of other names of Army forts that were changed by Biden. Now, originally, the reason for changing those names on those forts, and honestly, I'm going to tell you, this is one of those 1984 George Orwell kinds of things. The Democrats are attempting to distance themselves from their history. The Democrat history in this country has been, and always will be, regardless of what they tell you, they were the party of slavery. They were the party of the KKK. They were the party of the Southern Revolution that brought us the Civil War. End of story. There is nothing that they can tell you. They can't, they can try and deny it. They can try and muddy the waters by talking about this Southern strategy of Richard Nixon that caused the parties to actually switch. They didn't do that. History demonstrates they didn't do that. You can just look at a Democrat today and you can see they are still hung up on this idea that because you have a different skin color or a different ideology, because you think differently than them, that you need to be categorized. You need to be vitriolized. You need to be ostracized. They are the party of hate. They are the party of division. And that is it. That is all they've ever been. Their entire history. That is all they've ever been. So, the thing about it is that the forts, like Fort Bragg, like Fort Hood, like Fort Pickett, like Fort Gordon, which is another fort that I was actually a part of, okay? Like Fort Lee, like Fort Polk, like Fort Rucker, and like Fort A.P. Hill. They were all named after Confederate individuals, Confederate officers, Confederate, what they would be considered heroes in the Confederate Army, so on and so forth. That's what they were originally named for. And the piece of this, or the portion of this, was essentially because of the fact that the country was attempting to get stitched back together. And so as a part of the reconciliation process, there was an agreement that they would go and name a bunch of forts after these Confederate heroes. Okay? Well, the left, back in Biden era, said, no, we can't have you. You know, those Confederate people, they were racists. They wanted slavery. Well, they did, but the part that they left out was the fact that they were also Democrats. For the most part. I won't say all of them, but I'm guessing they were very well likely Democrats. Now, all of that being said, Donald Trump has decided to rename them back to what they were. However, there's a simple catch. Instead of renaming them for the Confederate people that they were originally named for, they are now being renamed for people who have done new honors, new soldiers, people who have received the Medal of Honor, the Distinguished Service Cross, the Silver Star. And so these will be renamed for heroic soldiers who served in conflicts that range from the Civil War to the Battle of Mogadishu. So, in Virginia, which used to be named Fort Pickett, was changed to Fort Barfoot, is now going back to Fort Pickett, and will be named after a World War II soldier who received the Distinguished Service Cross for his actions during to destroy two enemy positions with grenades after crawling through enemy fire. That person's name is First Lieutenant Vernon W. Pickett. Fort Cavazos, which used to be Fort Hood, is going to be renamed for a World War I soldier who earned the Distinguished Service Cross for actions over in France, Colonel Robin B. Hood. Fort Eisenhower, named today, will revert back to Fort Gordon in Georgia and will be renamed such after Master Sergeant Gary I. Gordon, who won the Medal of Honor for his actions during the Battle of Mogadishu in 1993. Fort Gregg Adams in Virginia will be returned to the name of Fort Lee. And it is to be named after Spanish-American war hero Private Fitz Lee, who also earned the Medal of Honor after rescuing wounded comrades from the battlefield under fire. In Louisiana, Fort Polk, which is called Fort Johnson right now, Fort Polk will be named in honor of World War II hero and Silver Star recipient General James H. Polk. Fort Novosel in Alabama will revert back to Fort Rucker in honor of World War aviator Captain Edward W. Rucker, who was a recipient of the Distinguished Service Cross. And finally, Fort Walker will be restored to Fort A.P. Hill and is to be named after 3 Civil War soldiers: Lieutenant Colonel Edward Hill, First Sergeant Robert A. Pinn, and Private Bruce Anderson. So these names are being changed thanks to a naming commission that was authorized by Congress that directed any references to the Confederacy be removed from the federal property. In addition to changing the names, this also led to the removal of the Confederate Reconciliation Monument in Arlington National Cemetery as well. So, there you go. So they're going back to their original names, but not necessarily being named for the original soldiers that they were named for. Okay. So let's go ahead. Let's see. Do I have another one? Do I have anything else? Well, let me go ahead and do this. Let's put that away. Just a second here. This is a new one. We'll see what this one reads. All right. So, are you tired of paying outrageous prices for your medications while other countries pay a fraction of the cost? President Trump just signed an executive order to fix the problem, but why wait? Blockbusterhealth.com is already offering America these savings right now. So we're talking about up to 80% of the exact same medications you're already taking. Same brands, same quality, just fair prices. Whether it's Ozempic, insulin, or any other prescription, Blockbuster Health connects you directly with licensed pharmacies that offer these international pricing. No middleman, no markup, just honest prices. How do you get these prices? It's pretty simple. All you got to do is call 1-888-350-1353. Once again, just to get the number right, 1-888-350-1353. Call that number, 1-888-350-1353, or visit blockbusterhealth.com. Once again, blockbusterhealth, all one word, .com. And this is to get all kinds of medications, Ozempic, insulin, any other prescription. They connect you once again with directly licensed pharmacies that offer international pricing with no middlemen, no markup, and just honest prices. Call 1-888-350-1353 or visit blockbusterhealth.com to get these deals. Americans shouldn't have to choose between their health and their wallet. Call 1-888-350-1353 or visit blockbusterhealth.com. Go and check it out today. All right. So, I don't know if anybody caught this story. And realistically, I mean, these are states that are doing this, by the way. But the 10 Commandments apparently are going to be displayed in classrooms across multiple states now. And there's a lot of resistance to this. Okay. There's a lot of resistance to this. But and many people think that this flies in the face of the idea of the separation of church and state. Now, anyone who is a longtime whiskey warrior knows that phrase does not show up in the Constitution. And in fact, that phrase was originally pulled from a letter from Thomas Jefferson while he was president of the United States to a Baptist group. And what he was attempting to do was assuage their fears that the government could enact, like like England had done, could enact a requirement that they worship a specific religion. And so in his letter, he did write that there was a wall of separation, when in actuality, it really isn't a wall of separation. I've more accurately described it as a one-way mirror, meaning that religion is supposed to influence, meaning God's laws, influence man's law, because the natural law or God's law is above man's law. And so this idea that we have separation of church and state is actually a bit of a fallacy. In the First Amendment, it talks about the fact that the Congress cannot establish a religion nor stop the free exercise thereof. Okay? And so the thing about it is that just tells you what Congress can't do. It doesn't tell you what religion can or cannot do. Okay? Religion influences man's law. Okay? Religion is upstream of politics. Okay? But anyway, the point is that a lot of these laws that came in with the idea of the separation of church and state actually haven't really been in place that long. See, back in the day, back in the day, in the context of American history, from 1980 to today at 2025, that's only 45 years that these quote-unquote separation of church and state laws have been in place. Prior to this, there were textbooks that were printed. In fact, the very first published American educational textbook, and keep in mind, this is the first purely American textbook, known as the New England Primer, published by Benjamin Harris in Boston in 1690. Okay? In 1690. They that book featured an in-depth section on the Ten Commandments. See, what a lot of people don't seem to understand is that the Islam or the Muslim faith was not here in America at the time of our founding. And so our country was based off of Judeo-Christian principles and values. And the idea was that the Judeo-Christian faith as a whole, covering things like the Protestants, the Methodists, the Baptists, the Puritans, all of these different faiths that all have a basis in what is considered to be the Judeo-Christian principles and values were what the First Amendment was actually attempting to block, meaning that they couldn't have the government of America say, just like the Church of England did or the King of England did, you must join the Church of England. You cannot be Protestant anymore. You must be a Church of England person. And so the thing about it is that these people who came here and wanted religious freedom to practice their religion in their way, they wanted to make sure that they understood exactly what this is. But it wasn't to prevent religion from influencing the government. It was to prevent the government from influencing their religion. And this is where the mistake comes into play with everybody who thinks that there is a separation of church and state. There actually isn't a separation. All there is a restriction on the state from blocking religion. And that's the true meaning of the First Amendment of the United States when it comes into that. All right, let's go ahead and get to tonight's dun, 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 Pet of the Week. Apparently, when I'm looking at the camera or I'm looking at one of my screens around here, apparently there's a specific way that the light hits and it makes my eyes, makes one look blue and one green. I'm going to tell you folks, I have hazel eyes. And so it makes sense. That's my official designation. That makes sense that one would look a little blue and one would look a little green, depending upon how I'm looking at you, because that's what hazel eyes do. There are times when I wear certain clothes and my eyes will look almost green. So anyway, all right, enough about me. Let's move on to tonight's Pet of the Week. Pet of the Week tonight was submitted by Coco. Coco, insert name here, says, "Hi, Whiskey. This is my neighbor's goat, Ziggy. He's the sweetest goat I've ever met. He loves to follow people around and try to find snacks. He answers to his name and likes to push up against you so you'll pet him. He's my new best friend, and I love him to pieces. If I ever get my own goat, I want him to be just like Ziggy." And she ends with, "Thanks, everyone. Love ya." So let's go ahead and take a look at Ziggy. Take a look at Ziggy. I'm guessing that's you. Is that not true? Coco D, insert name here. Please tell me if I'm wrong. But here is Ziggy, the goat. Ziggy's quite interesting. Let's see. Wait a minute. What is it? All right. So here we go. There's Ziggy walking around. Now, Coco, I think, is in Wyoming. Correct? So that's there. You get a good look at the Wyoming landscape, folks. Right there. That's Wyoming. Flat, or fairly flat, no trees, grass everywhere. Anyway, sorry. I got to tease her a little bit because, yeah. Anyway, moving on. So here is, there's Ziggy again, looking at you like, yeah. So. And that is confirmed. That was there. There is Coco right there with Ziggy. Ziggy looks proud. Looking up. I'm proud. Either that or, no, you're not going to take my photo like my dog does. Anyway. So there's Ziggy and Coco. And here's Ziggy hanging out with the chickens, trying to get the chicken feed through the fence. And there we go. We're back to Coco and Ziggy. Ziggy getting some chin scratches. So yes, that is Wyoming. So if anybody was interested in what Wyoming looks like, well, there you go. And believe me, it looks like that from, I believe, end to end. That's all I'm going to tell you. I've driven through the state, and I tell you, when you come up from, now I've driven to it from west to east. So when you come up the Rockies on the west side, it's like you break over the top and then all of a sudden everything is like just wide open. There's no trees, there's a little scrub brush, and there's grass everywhere. And it's like that for miles. And it's and yes, Bonnie, it can get cold in the wintertime, very cold in the wintertime. I'm sure Coco could tell you all about it. But anyway, so there we go. There's Coco and Ziggy hanging out, and that is tonight's Pet of the Week. If you would like to have your pet featured on Pet of the Week, all you need to do is send me your information, and pictures, obviously, or video, because I've done both, of your pet. And I will go ahead and get you into the rotation. I have one for next week. 3 Chevy sent me in a submission for next week. So I've got a submission for next week. But you can get it for the week after if you hurry up and get them. So that is it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, please make sure that you go to the search up the American Perspective channel and hit that green follow button to get notified every time I go live. Also, too, don't forget to hit those thumbs up or thumbs down if you really want. I mean, I'm not going to blame you necessarily. Yeah. Anyway, if you want, on all my platforms, whether it's X, YouTube, Facebook, and of course the aforementioned Rumble. We will see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.